All right, so college football is headed in a completely different direction than what we've seen the past 10 years or so with the conference expansion and the 12-team playoff. Evan, I'll let you with just initial thoughts on where college football is heading.
Well, the very interesting thing this week is that Harbaugh, who of course just won a national championship at Michigan, is already out the door. He's heading the NFL, he's heading the Chargers, right? So, that yes, could you say he could have been suspended a little bit in 2024 if he stayed on Michigan? Of course. But I mean, that kind of tells it, it's a good thing for the players. The transfer portal's ramping up. I wrote down some of those rankings. Ole Miss is number one so far in the transfer portal ranking. So gives teams that are good maybe a chance to compete. Stay tuned on that. But, you know, it levels the playing field in that sense, but also it's kind of competing with the NFL now too. So listen, Jordan, we're just gonna have to wait and see. I've said with this playoff, I personally have always been a fan of I just like the BCS, I like the national championship, and then make conference championships more valuable, make bowl games more valuable, and just have the two teams at the top. I was not after 10 years of the college football playoff as it was with four teams, I ended up not being such a fan of it. And especially I agreed with their decision, the 2023 rankings. I know Jordan did it. But it's a chaotic format, and we saw that play out. So with the 12 team, I'm definitely skeptical. I see what they're trying to do. College basketball, in my opinion, is the best playoff out there. So I see they're trying to replicate that a little bit. Obviously, not 64 teams. They've got 12 teams. Trying to replicate some of that magic. The real answer is just we'll see. It's going to happen regardless if I want it or not. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, I think we saw the 14 playoff format was just never going to work. Uh, let's just say, for example, that we had, 500 undefeated Power Five champions in a given year. Who was going to be left out? Uh, like the 14 playoff to me was never going to work. The way they're laying out the 12-team playoff with conference champions, I believe it's 6 and 6. Six conference champions get an automatic spot in the playoff, which to me is
Which
just completely absurd.
Jordan, by the way, I have a question for you for that. Maybe our viewers are confused on it too. So I did see that too. Six conference teams get in. So, you know, uh, hypothetically, this past season, it would have been Liberty, the sixth one, because they were the highest ranked group of five other conference champions. So they would have got in, and all the Power Five conferences would have gotten in. But my question is, now that the Pac-12 is pretty much completely dissolved, how's that going to work? Is it going to be two group of fives or?
I believe it will be two group of five. Yes,
Okay, because I was curious if they were just going to give it to Washington State or Oregon State, but
which is just completely absurd to me.
yeah, no. I think that's the better way of going about it because there's some really good group of five teams. I mean, you could have argued, yes, Liberty last year, but who else was really good last year? Like Tulane and
Tulane, SMU was really good.
yep,
Um,
with Preston Stone, he had a really good year at quarterback at us.
mhm.
Yeah, so no, that won't disappoint at all. And they'll probably rank them like I saw in the hypothetical matchup. They had Liberty, yes, they're the conference championship, but they had them as the 12 seed. So it's not like they're not giving them like the 5 seed or 6 seed or anything. So
I I don't know if it's going to work that way or not. I hope
and
it
by the way,
doesn't.
this was just hypothetical what I was looking at, but go ahead.
Right. I hope it doesn't work that way. Me personally, I hope we don't. I hope we move away from that 6-6, where the six conference champions get an automatic spot because, like I said, it's completely absurd to me. Um, it's crazy to think that a group of five conference champions could get in over a 9-3 SEC team. Which, by the way, if you look at the SEC schedules next year, like the strength of record is going to be absolutely insane.
Okay, what about five automatic bids instead of six then? Because I think there's some yes. Would you want to see the SEC teams in there? Yes, but I would say take a look at Ole Miss for
And Big
example,
Ten
right?
and Big Ten.
Ole, Ole Miss has been and Big Ten too. Ole Miss has been really good, right? When they faced Georgia, that wasn't even a game. That wasn't even close. Now that's one example, sure. I mean, Missouri had a really good season, stuff like that. I forget if Missouri was 10-2 or 9-3. I forget, but
10-2.
10-2. Okay, so my point is a 9-3 team. I don't know. Like maybe if they face Liberty head to head, they'd be better, but I don't know if that's for sure a guarantee. So I guess I have a little bit different of a view on that, but we'll just have to see what they do.
I so the way I think it's going to work is the four conference champions, SEC, Big Ten, ACC, and Big 12, are going to get the four buys in the first round of the playoff.
But I
And
actually, and I'm not saying I agree with this. I saw something different too, that no matter what the rankings are, it doesn't even have to be the conference championships. So say Texas and Ohio, no, not Texas. No, yeah, we'll go Texas. Say Texas and Georgia just kill it in the SEC, right? And they're the top four teams that they would still get the buys. That's what I saw. What do you think about that, I guess, Jordan? What?
are we talking? Are we talking that if one of them doesn't win the conference, and they'll still get a first round bye?
Yes.
I mean, I think it should work that way because if if Georgia goes, let's say 7-1 in the SEC, and Texas goes 7-1 in the SEC as well, and they play a close conference championship game, you can't tell me that either Georgia or Texas is not one of the
Exactly.
four best teams in the country.
And I
That's
think
not what
that's
you're
what
going to
we
tell me.
saw. I think that's what we saw in 2023 exactly. And I hope the committee, yes, it's a different format. I agree 100% with you on that. They need to take that away. Not all losses are bad. Like, yes, you shouldn't reward teams for losing.
No.
But you got to really take a look at, like, again, what's the point of, are they doing a committee anymore? Because they've got the six at large, right? So they're still doing it.
Yes, they're still doing it. So they're still doing a committee because you still got to take the six teams that you think deserve to be in the playoff, other than those six conference champions.
So that's when you account for the seating and you account for the six at large. That's what the committee really has to think. Otherwise, again, what's the point of a committee if they're just, well, they lost to this team, so you might as well just make it different. You might as well just get rid of the committee. I don't know. So I hope they
Right.
take something away from that. But
All right. So let's talk a little about expansion. Obviously, you have Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC, going from the Big 12. You have Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado, I believe, going to the Big 12, leaving the Pac 12. And then you got Oregon, Washington, USC, and UCLA going to the Big 10, leaving the Pac 12, leaving Oregon State and Washington State just by themselves in the Pac 12. Poor Oregon State and Washington State, by the way. I feel for them.
I feel
So
for them too. But when are they going to make a decision on their future? Like, just I don't know. But go ahead. Yeah.
so speaking of that, I think I saw that Oregon State and Washington State are going to be other for other than football in the West Coast Conference.
Mountain West, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. Which would be the group of five for football. So they would have to swallow their pride a little bit. But Mountain West is really good at basketball. They're really good at other sports. So I don't know. I just don't like we can admit that they got screwed, and I fully do, which is why I can't stand UCLA. I can't stand USC for starting all of that. We can admit they got screwed, but at the same time, okay, it's time to move on. Just the Mountain West is it's not that, yes, it's group of five, but it's not that bad. It's better than being independent because then you're going to get forgot about. And you don't want to turn into a UMass. You do not want to turn into a UConn. So get in a conference, swallow your pride, and maybe bounce back. I don't know. But
And even Notre Dame, but
yeah, they're the exception. I do agree that they
yeah,
should win, but they're the
Notre
exception.
Dame cannot be forgotten because they're Notre Dame.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, so the reason I wanted to bring up expansion was because of the strength of schedules that I mentioned. The SEC and the Big Ten have different scheduling models, right? The SEC is doing well. Every conference, as a matter of fact, is doing away with divisions, and we don't have this.
Which, by the
Georgia.
way, is a great thing, I believe. But yeah,
I think it is because you look at the Big Ten, right? They had 10 conference championship games. The Big Ten East beat the Big Ten West every single one of those 10 times.
crazy.
Um, so the 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 strength of schedules too. If a team in the SEC or Big Ten goes 9-3, are we prepared to admit that they're better than a team that goes 11-1 in the ACC or Big 12?
That's going to be the discussion. It depends who. So let's say Missouri or Tennessee, right? Let's say they lose to Bama, they lose to Georgia, and they lose to Texas. One or the other. I don't have the exact schedules right in front of my face, but I'm just saying, yeah, that's going to be a tough argument versus Louisville, who, in my opinion, they finished 10-2, but they didn't really turn out that well when they played in their bowl game and the conference championship versus FSU. So yeah, that's going to be a really interesting discussion. 11-1, that might be hard to take away from, but 10-2 for sure. SEC 9-3 over an ACC 10-2 all day.
And I also want to just bring up, how are the playoff committee going to interpret that? Because, like, say you have, Louisville goes 11-1 in the ACC, and they play one ranked team all year, and then you have a team like, I don't know, Tennessee, who goes 9-3, but those three losses are to three ranked teams, and they also beat three ranked teams. So how is that going to be interpreted?
Yeah, which is why I was worried about using Tennessee as my example because usually they end up choking. But when we got to remember, we're not talking about the four teams anymore. We're talking about the 12 teams. And Tennessee has definitely deserved, especially I think about 2022 for sure. They definitely deserved at least a spot in the 12 team. So I think the committee, especially, I think recently they've gotten better on this. I hope so at least, but I think they'll interpret that right. I think they'll interpret exactly how tough an SEC or a Big 12, or excuse me, not a Big 12, a Big 10 schedule is compared to an ACC.
As a fan of an SEC team, I definitely hope so because of course Georgia, we play Clemson in non-conference.
Georgia will be fine, but yeah,
We
go
got to
ahead.
play at Alabama. We play at Ole Miss, at Texas. We got a road game at Kentucky as well, which won't be easy. We face Tennessee at
Brock
home.
Vandegrift coming, we got to face him again. But
Yeah, and then one of our linebackers also transferred to
okay,
Kentucky as well, so that'll be fun.
yeah, so I just wanted to run through. I think for what a possible playoff 2024 might look like. I'm sure we'll have official predictions later, but just a general view on my scope. I think the Big 12 is the most up for grabs power, I guess, for a conference now. The Big 12, especially adding all the new teams, we don't know for
Well,
sure. I think FSU, when you look at number three in terms of rankings in the transfer portal, I believe top 10 in terms of recruiting right now. They should, I know the Jordan Travis injury sucked. They should bounce back. They should handle the ACC. I think Ohio State is going to handle the Big Ten. And
Ohio
then
State
I
is
think
definitely the favorite.
what's
Ohio
up?
State is definitely the favorite in the Big Ten in my eyes. With like you mentioned, Jim Harbaugh leaving Michigan, and also the players they brought in through the transfer portal.
But also look at Michigan's schedule. It is tough.
Yeah,
Like,
that
yeah.
get, get, schedule does play a big part in this.
Yeah, you got to look at the schedules too. But no, Ohio State's going to they had a pretty mediocre end to the last couple years. I think they're going to be pissed off. And then the SEC, I actually think is the most interesting. I think Georgia's for sure favored. But I have three contenders for the SEC. True contenders: Texas, Georgia, and Missouri. Believe it or not. Why? Because Missouri's schedule. You got to look at it. Their toughest game is probably at Alabama, but that looks kind of winnable now. So those are. Or there. Wait, does Georgia play Missouri?
Georgia does not play Missouri next year.
No, but so that's a very winnable. So that's why I put Missouri into it. It's a little bit of a long shot, but they had a really good year this year. But I actually think the SEC is the most interesting. But in terms of that, so say those three, you won't get three teams with the first round bye, but maybe the SEC gets two. So you have those two, and then it's also going to depend on what the group of five looks like again. Does Liberty is just a powerhouse in terms of the group of five, with their facilities and everything, fan support. They're going to keep pumping it out. It's going to be interesting, but it also just I know I've rambled a little bit. It's going to be interesting. So say Liberty gets that 12 seed and they go to a five seed. So say they are the 12. If they get
And then
blown
they play
out,
on
then they may
campus.
reassess. But yeah.
And then they play on campus, which I cannot wait. Home playoff games on campuses, kind of what the FCS has been doing for a while. I can't wait for playoff games on the campuses of these big schools like Ohio State, maybe Michigan, Georgia, maybe Alabama. Those will be electric atmospheres for sure.
So yeah, no, for sure. And if you want to catch a little bit of that college basketball magic, right? Like, they have such an awesome tournament in March Madness. I think that's how you do it.